You're the head of customer marketing at Gong. When most B2B companies think of hashtag brand goals for customer advocacy and for raving fans, they think of Gong. What's your philosophy when it comes to building an advocacy program?
It's really exciting. I think that for me, coming into Gong, it's actually one of our company's core operating principles is that creating raving fans. So for me, I feel like that's such a wonderful starting place is that the entire company truly is rallied around how they create raving fans. And then I really look at my job as the way that I activate those raving fans on behalf of our sales team and our field team and our brand and our marketing. The role that I play in the raving fans is that it's part of this whole system that's actually creating the raving fan base. How we actually go and we take that momentum and that excitement and we leverage it in as many different programs and plays as we possibly can. So when you think of the flywheel of the customer journey that a lot of companies have moved towards, I really see that customer marketing plays a key role in a lot of those areas. So whether that's our customer success team and understanding, how do we actually leverage advocacy as a moment for you to build that raving fan or, create goodwill with your customer. Let's create plays that actually foster that experience for your customer. Or if it's for our field teams, how do we actually leverage our stories to help you bring in more pipeline or close more pipelines? And then for our product team too, is like, how do we tap our raving fan base to actually help us, generate ideas for our product or give us feedback for our product so that we are continuing to build and iterate on the experiences that our core product is actually developing as well. We measure success in what I look at as sort of three different ways. And the first is we look at the board level KPIs. So these aren't necessarily KPIs that we own outright, but we look to how do we actually use those as measurements of where we need to be focusing. So how are we actually helping influence some of those core KPIs or supporting those? So things like our NDR, like how is our net dollar retention, our retention rates, our adoption rate, and then our customer success or happiness metrics that we look at. And from there, I do a next level down is like our program level. So the programs that we are owning and driving, which are the ones that we are accountable to supporting, that's where we look at, okay, if we structure each of our functions that we run in our customer marketing team to different program areas. So for us, that's retention and adoption, upsell and cross-sell, and then advocacy. And the last one, it would be more at the tactical level. And this is where we spend more of our time understanding from our own learning and growth. How are we doing? How are we measuring on the success of our programs? Where can we be optimizing or where do we need more support from others? So I think when we use all three of those kind of mix of metrics in tandem, we can get a really complete picture of where our team functions within those broader sense of the business and then how we are best performing for our own capabilities too.
So I hear a lot when we're talking to customer marketing and or just marketing teams in general who maybe don't yet have a customer marketing function. We have customers who love us, but we're not operationalizing it. We're not doing anything with them. We're not leveraging them enough. Where would you advise folks in that situation to even get started?
I'd say one of the first things that you can do is actually look to understand where does the business need stories. So actually start with what is that business goal that you're trying to help support? And then from there, work back into your advocacy pool. Okay, so now I have to build my pool of advocates or I have to help identify who's going to be in that pool. What you can actually do is start to structure your own version of a persona, like who is the right match for the types of stories that you're looking to create or the advocacy content that you're looking to create. So we actually built this out. In ours were a series of their role. So what's the role that they actually have with our company and then maybe within the product. So technical admins, executive sponsor, champions of the product versus their actual title. So is there a match between their role and their title? And then the next tier would be their segment. So we're looking at kind of these different tiers of our database essentially to understand, is that the right fit from a persona level to help us match? From there, we actually rank. So we have different tiers of the advocates that we're looking at from those personas to say, raving fans, we want to be giving them a moment and an opportunity to have a spotlight, even if we can't go out and, put them all on the keynote of our, annual user conference, right? So we actually did a matching exercise to say, well, let's take our whole menu of customer advocacy activities and actually match that back to the profile of those personas that we've created and the tiers we've structured around that. So we use that as sort of our guidepost to help us be able to then, qualify or disqualify if we have someone come to the table for an opportunity, or know where do we need to be focusing and building our pool of advocates. So we actually did a lot of that exercise to help us understand, yeah, now we have this advocacy pool. Okay, where do we even rank that in terms of the numbers of our own health? If you were to look at it in that sense of like, how does our own database health of advocates match to these tiers, and where do we need to actually focus our time to do more building? So I think where it comes down to the core of customer marketing is so many of us are passionate about actually just engaging with the customers and having these opportunities to build relationships and build long-term relationships. And for me, I know that's definitely what, gets me most excited is when I actually get to have customer conversations. So if we're freeing up more of our time by knowing where to focus, we can actually get back to more of the exciting work that is really what motivates so many of us.
Yeah, amazing. And then in your ongoing journey at Gong, who do you look up to, right? You have all these folks looking up to you, but are there any companies or even anything weirder, like anything outside of B2B that you look to for inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I find my inspiration, I think at this stage in my career, I can find inspiration at all levels, right? I think that there's people who have, been there, done that, very tenured and experienced, who I always look up to and continue to just sort of follow and understand like what they're doing or how they got to that place. But there's a lot of people who are completely rethinking what great marketing looks like today, that I'm also just as keenly interested in.
Like I've heard some folks say they look at Walt Disney and like Disney for hospitality and like treating the customer. Like, I don't know, I've heard some weird, in a good way, right? Like sort of weird sources of inspiration.
Actually, I find a lot of inspiration, and maybe I'm just fulfilling my 15-year-old childhood dreams of flipping through my mom's magazines. But I think there's a lot of cool, interesting content that I see from like some Vogue and GQ and Vanity Fair in the way that they're driving storytelling in a very authentic narrative. It's obviously highly produced and very polished, but I think it does add a lot of kind of character and depth to a lot of the people that they profile. So I'm constantly referring to Vanity Fair has this 73 question series that they do. And I just love the formatting of that and how sort of natural it feels in that way. In a weird way, traditional media has come back to be inspiring in a funny sense, and looking beyond what we see oftentimes in the B2B realms or even some of the B2C companies that traditional B2B marketers are always kind of looking for that inspiration too.
Yeah, I love that. I think that this sort of like profile piece on the human and showing a little bit of behind the scenes, like you're friends with this person. I saw Intercom doing some fun stuff with this. Haven't seen a whole lot else by B2B companies, but I love that angle. You said magazine, and I just had to show you, we did sort of a spoof of a magazine cover for one of our customers, Tim at Gainsight, from I think this is a teenager or like a celebrity magazine. And we sort of took the angle of like featuring our customers, but we got a real kick out of this one.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You're going to have to send that to me, and I'm going to pass that along to my content team.
How about on the sales side? Once you create all of this customer proof content, how do you like to see sales using this? What does it look like as its best?
It can come in a variety of forms. As marketers, sometimes we have a tendency to get very polished and want everything to be that premier sense of readiness before we launch. And that's a lot of what we're trained on. But I think that there's also sometimes a lot of value that can be found through the more authentic voice and the things that we can actually enable people to use. So I do find that for our field team, it's a mix, right? Sometimes they'll get just as much run rate out of a great review that we've uncovered for them, or a great post that someone has shared on LinkedIn about our product, as they will as with a formal testimonial or something that we've actually gone through the full cycle to capture. And then definitely here at Gong, that really does vary too by segment levels. Our senior enterprise sellers may have different workflows of the kind of content that works for them and that what they want to see, versus more of our emerging markets or mid markets who can have more flexibility with the type of content that they're going to be leveraging to get sort of those door openers or that proof that they need. Really understanding the different sales cycles and the performance and the preferences of those teams can help go a long way in understanding how your content will get used at the end of the day. A lot of what I try to do is design our campaigns or like our content that we create to the customer journey. So building a thesis on understanding where do I think my content would be leveraged? And then how can I best give that a moment to be utilized in a campaign structure, in a sales cycle? Understanding what content works at what stage in the buyer's journey is also really valuable. One that I created at a past company that went over really well was we took a lot of our user content where our customers were actually creating presentations and content for us in webinars, in our conferences, and our virtual conferences. And they were telling these really unique use case stories, right? And we took that content and we not only created the customer story from it, but we actually turned that into a playbook. So we were saying, let's actually package it up in a standard format where it's really digestible and quickly usable for other customers. And we found that was not only a great customer facing tool for helping us drive adoption of, but also a great sales tool as well, where our sales team was able to show, hey, this is the kind of capabilities and use cases that can be run on our platform that can't be done through a competitor.
Some of the most useful content for prospects, as opposed to the traditional case study, is actually content that starts with a community audience and intention first.
And I think every customer marketing team, if community is not already a part of the org, needs to be partnering very closely and actively participating in those communities too, to make sure that they're successful.
Okay, a couple quick fire ones. You have to eliminate one of these 3 types of customer proof. Which one do you get rid of for good and why? Customer video, G2 reviews, or case studies?
Oh, it's really hard to decide what I would get rid of, because I think each plays such a unique role and has been so valuable for us in each regard. I think if I was going to get rid of one, it would probably be customer case studies in their traditional form. I think that's something that I'm pretty bullish on trying to rewrite the formula on how a customer story is told, but it doesn't mean that I don't see the value in it. I just think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to think about, looking at what kind of content performs really well today, or what kind of content people find most captivating, and then trying to match customer stories to that. So I think that's where too, video can oftentimes be a little bit more flexible in that regard because of that authentic nature. But I know that's something that we've definitely played around with a lot at Gong is, how do we help make sure that that authentic voice and creative tone actually comes through in our customer stories, so that we aren't just playing to the traditional, challenge solution results, but actually flipping that to be a little bit more outcomes focused and focused on the customer and really the value that it's brought to them.
Yeah. I agree with you for what it's worth. I would choose the same, but maybe a little bit of a cheat answer, because it's I would do a different format of a customer story.
Yeah.
Okay. And then would you rather call every customer you're on a call with Chad, regardless of their name, and not be able to explain why? Or would you rather open each customer call with a personalized song that you wrote for them?
I'm a horrible singer, so I wouldn't want to offend anybody. And I think it actually might be more offensive to just call someone the wrong name the whole time than for me to actually sing at them. So unfortunately, I'm just going to have to go with that as much as that might make me seem impersonal.
So you're going to call them Chad?
That's right, Chad. I would.
Yeah. Can you imagine just every conversation and they're like, that's not my name. And then you just have to do it again and again.